If I am honest, the silence inside you is not silent at all. It roars like a storm trapped beneath cracked skin, every breath vibrating against a throat that once begged to be heard until it tore. You remember the moment the note broke, how the world stayed busy while your voice dissolved, and the only echo that answered was the hollow thud of your own heartbeat. Exhaustion set in, not the sweet fatigue of work well done, but the bone-deep surrender that whispers nothing will ever change. Tonight I stand beside that surrender and say it matters. The frayed edge of your voice proves you fought. The emptiness shouting back proves you still care. Each hoarse-rattled syllable is unspent power, waiting, storing itself in secret chambers behind the sternum. The system insisted you stay polite, useful, decorous, yet the raw gravel in your tone refuses the script, and that refusal is a pulse. Stay with me, feel the space where the words used to be, and notice the latent heat gathering there. By the time these minutes close, you will understand that the shards of broken sound are tools sharper than any polished speech ever offered. If I am honest, the mantra of positive thinking is a velvet gag. It slides over the mouth with promises of light and immediately tightens, cutting off the oxygen that anger and grief need in order to transform. The poster over your desk that urges relentless optimism pretends to be your ally, yet it whispers a quieter command: deny the thunder gathering in your chest. Every time you repeat, "I am fine," every time you superimpose a forced smile over a convulsion of dread, you siphon voltage away from the engine of change. The mind obeys, corners its own darkness, and congratulates itself on composure, while the body stores the unfinished scream in muscle and marrow. Most psychologists will not tell you that sunshine affirmations often serve power structures far better than they serve souls. A cheerful client is easier to schedule than a furious one. A compliant workforce files fewer grievances than a grieving one. So the industry sells you fluorescent hope like candy, and you keep chewing, even when your teeth ache from the sugar. There is more at stake than saccharine words. When positive thinking becomes a moral imperative, failure to feel good turns into personal guilt. The pain was already there, raw and legitimate. Now it carries a new accusation. You must be broken because the smile does not stick. The double bind drains strength faster than any night of insomnia. Energy bleeds through the cracks left by forced gratitude lists and secret shame. The mind rewrites memories, painting them pastel, leaving no space for the original hues of terror or betrayal. You end up wandering a soft focus maze, convinced that intensity itself is a flaw. Yet the buried storm keeps muttering, louder each day, pushing toward the surface in headaches, skin rashes, sudden rage on empty highways. Positive thinking did not heal you. It chloroformed the messenger. Then comes the polished room of standard therapy, a safe container lined with terms and timelines. You sit across from practiced empathy, and within the first sessions you learn the choreography. Label the symptom, trace a thought, replace it with something reasonable. The ritual grants relief, like warm water numbing a bruise. Still, beneath the protocol, the original wound pulses. Techniques pivot around the blast zone without stepping inside. Slow breathing tames the heart rate, but not the memory of the night you could not breathe. Reframing shifts the narrative, but not the bone-deep conviction that the world abandoned you. The hour ends, the copay clears, and you walk back into the same echo where earlier truths still reverberate. Therapy has value, yet it often fears the raw electricity of unedited agony. It invites you to observe your pain from a safer distance, as though intimacy with your own blood might be unsanitary. Observation can illuminate. It can also sterilize. There is something darker still. The larger system, hungry for order, demands your silence because your scream disrupts the script. Workplace policies reward composure, social media algorithms boost likability, Family dinner conversations collapse under one unsheathed tragedy. The moment your voice rises beyond polite volume, labels appear: excessive, unstable, dramatic. The crowd praises resilience but sees only resilience that looks like productivity. Real resilience might require a tremor, a roar, a rupture of the status quo. That threatens metrics, forecasts, and fragile egos. So the system engineers a subtler solution. It convinces you that your own eruption is worthless. The devaluation happens in small calibrations. Eye rolls when emotions surface. Advice to keep it down for the children. Performance reviews marking passion as volatility. Each nudge reinscribes the lesson that survival equals obedience. You internalize the censorship until you police yourself better than any external warden could. Frustration grows because every strategy aimed at tidying the darkness circles the same pit without entering it. The smile drains power, the protocol sidesteps the crater, the culture brands your primal howl as defective. Pressure builds, something has to break. Yet within that looming rupture lies dormant genius, the first glimmer of insight. The hoarse edge of your unsaid words can carve new language. The frustration that seems to corrode you is already forging a sharper tool, one that will cut through facades instead of slicing your own throat. Sit with that tension, let it coil. Recognize that each dismissal added another layer of compressed energy. You feel it now as restlessness, as simmering disgust, as urgency that flares during sleepless early mornings. Good. That unrest is the compass, pointing toward the unsanitized truth the world tried to mute. Hold the line a little longer. The scream that was shamed into silence is about to become more articulate than any polished speech you ever rehearsed. If these words land in the tender bruised place you rarely show, subscribe to the channel. That simple gesture tells the algorithms that raw honesty matters more than polished noise, and it opens a hidden door for others wandering the same night. Each new voice strengthens a chorus no industry can muzzle. Your click is not applause, it is solidarity, a subtle rebellion against the culture of hush. Let the gatekeepers feel the tremor of gathering witnesses and understand that silence is no longer for sale. Together we turn fractured whispers into one steady pulse that cannot be ignored ever. The moment you pressed follow, a curtain lifted inside this conversation, and now we step onto a darker stage. Picture the unconscious not as a murky swamp, but as an ancient theater etched in bone. The seats hold every memory you exiled for being too loud, every fear you tried to muzzle with polite smiles. At center stage stands the sound you once belted toward the sky. Stripped of vocal cords, it moves like a phantom actor, mouthing lines no one up top can hear. Yet the floorboards tremble. Down here, even whispers carry weight. Carl Jung called this twilight the realm of shadow. Sigmund Freud traced its outlines in dream logic, and both agreed on one truth. A feeling unspoken is never asleep, it simply learns new dialects. Your scream switched languages when silence became safer. It morphed into chronic hesitations, stray insults aimed inward, decisions sabotaged at the last second. A friend hurts you in that familiar way and you shrug instead of growl, but later, alone, you grind your teeth until the enamel cracks. That is the echo-breaking character, stepping out of the wings to remind you the play is not over. The script of society says, present a pleasant face, keep conversation light, dismiss intensity as drama. So the archetype of the scream drifts underground, joining a chorus older than cities. Humanity carries a shared wound that predates spoken language, the primal terror of being unheard. Infants cry for touch, tribes once howled to warn of danger, prophets shouted truth in crowded squares until guards dragged them away. Millennia later, the cry persists. Though marketing teams rebrand it as enthusiasm and customer service holds music, tries to drown it in soothing chords. The masked grin we exchange in elevators is not joy, it is camouflage stitched by centuries of punishment for emotional volume. Behind every obligatory grin stands a collective ancestor still gripping a torch, still screaming at walls that no longer exist. When you feel irrational rage at an innocuous slight, that heat may be older than your own story. It seeps through bloodlines, through abandoned villages and lost rituals, demanding a place in daylight. Recognizing this is not indulgence. It is archaeology of the soul. Dig long enough and you meet the scream wearing many masks, yet at its core it begs for the same medicine, honest resonance. In the orchestra pit of mind works the inner critic, a stern conductor in immaculate attire. He taps the baton against the stand and the string section of self-doubt tightens. Brass instruments named Shame Blair, if a thought even hints at risk. Percussion labeled Past Mistakes pounds a funeral cadence each time you reach for something larger than survival. The critic claims mastery, yet he does not create a single original note. He simply samples fragments of old disapproval, parental sighs, classroom ridicule, corporate passive aggression, and remixes them into a relentless soundtrack. He insists this vigilance keeps you humble, but humility is never the goal. Paralysis is. Every roar that once threatened to break the ceiling becomes a controlled vibration pressed into minor key. The critic thrives on your distrust of spontaneity, because raw spontaneity would override his sheet music and cue the wild rhythms of desire, grief, and anger. The moment you see him as a curator rather than a king, the baton loses authority. The orchestra may still play, but you can choose when to listen and when to walk backstage, grab a dusty drum, and strike a rhythm no critic can read. The body holds its own archives. Trauma is not an abstract cloud floating near the psyche. It is protein memory packed into fascia, sinew, and heartbeat. Every time danger approached and fight or flight proved impossible, excess voltage locked into muscle fibers like frozen lightning. Decades later, that electricity remains, misfiring as jaw tension, migraines, digestive storms. You attend endless webinars on mindset, yet the knot between shoulder blades feels older than thought itself. Repression lives in posture. Slumped shoulders hide the size of lungs, reduce vocal resonance, keep the scream whisper thin. Consider how often you answer "I am good" while fingers twist or a leg bounces, small earthquakes betraying the truth. Somatic wisdom says sensation precedes language, which means the story your body tells is more honest than the one curated for social survival. When you stretch slowly and a wave of emotion rises uninvited, that is stored thunder asking release. When you exhale and tears sting without warning, that is a semaphore from the nervous system announcing a storm-cleared room for rain. Healing begins not with louder declarations, but with permission to feel the density of trapped charge, to shiver, yawn, or sob until muscles remember their original fluid rhythm. Here lies the paradox many self-help manuals skip. Real strength blooms when the inner auditorium grows silent enough to hear the faintest ripple. After rage spends its heat and grief spills its last lucid drop, a hush settles that is anything but empty. The mind, no longer juggling rehearsed defenses, sits beside itself in attentive stillness. Outwardly, nothing dramatic happens. Inwardly, tectonic plates shift. Insight arises not shouted by ego, but surfaced through calm observation. You realize the critic sounds small when you do not amplify him. You notice the smile you wear for others pinches across the cheekbones. Loosening it brings relief. You feel the hum of stored energy disperse as joints move in slow, deliberate arcs. The power you once sought in charismatic speech now flows through unforced presence. People around you sense it even if they cannot name it. They lean closer, quieting themselves, as though some forgotten instinct tells them wisdom resides in this calm field. Silence, previously a tomb, becomes a forge. The scream no longer needs decibels. Its message transmits through steady gaze, grounded breath, and language stripped of pretense. The journey from gagged throat to mindful quiet is not linear and never final. You will find old recordings of the critic still looping at midnight. You will catch yourself rehearsing pleasant banalities while your body vibrates dissent. Remember that recognition itself is progress. The stage lights fell on the ghostly actor, and you did not run. You watched, you listened, you named what you saw. Conscious witness breaks the spell. Each time you meet an echo with presence rather than flight, the echo integrates. Eventually, the theater becomes a place of deliberate performance rather than haunting. You choose which voices take the microphone and which retire to archival storage. The collective wound still hums in the walls, but now it sounds less like a siren and more like a chanting choir, reminding you that pain shared across generations can also weave solidarity. Hold this awareness as an ember. Guard it from the winds of quick-fix culture and the drizzle of cynical detachment. When the world urges you to brighten up, remember that brightness without depth blinds. When it suggests you calm down, recall that calm drained of authenticity is merely dormancy. Your task is subtler. Allow each emotion its fullest color, and then let it fade into the spectrum, leaving the canvas richer, never bleached. The next time your throat tightens, pause before forcefully clearing it. Sense whether an ancient phrase tries to emerge. It may not require shouting. It may wish instead to ripple through shoulder blades, down into fingertips, out into a gesture or a written line. Trust the intelligence coded in that impulse. It has survived eras of repression and still carries the blueprints of true expression. Someone once defined maturity as the ability to sit with both terror and tenderness in the same breath. You now glimpse why. The scream and the silence are not enemies. They are consecutive movements in the same symphony. Let the scream crest, let the silence follow, and notice how attention sharpens in the interval. That edge is the birthplace of choice. From here, you can step toward habits that nourish or relapse into hypnotic compliance. Neither path will vanish. The difference lies in how consciously you walk. Awareness cannot guarantee ease, but it guarantees possibility, and possibility is the soil of genuine power. The critic may raise the baton again tomorrow. The smile mask may slide on in a board meeting. The shoulders may hunch at the memory of unspoken grief. When that happens, do not curse the recurrence. Use it as rehearsal. Breathe into the rigid spot, soften the jaw, imagine the stage lights dim, and listen for the whisper underneath. If it sounds like a forgotten child, comfort it. If it sounds like ancestral battle drums, march in place until your feet remember the rhythm. Each response recruits more of the energy previously trapped in suppression. Over months and years, this reclamation accumulates until people you meet remark on an undefinable density in your presence. They feel safer to reveal their own storms because your calm hints that all weather is welcome. Let that be the quiet rebellion. A world built on edited emotions struggles to monetize genuine depth. When you inhabit your full range, you become unpredictable in the most grounded way. Marketing tricks falter, manipulative politics lose grip, interpersonal games dissolve because genuine awareness sees through them without spectacle. The system may still prefer you muted, but it can no longer map your every move. Your sovereignty resides in the felt sense that everything arising within you belongs, finds expression, and settles. From this place you choose speech or silence not from fear, not from obligation, but from alignment with the moment. So we stand here, you and I, at the edge of old applause fading into a different resonance. No grand finale, no fireworks, only the steady throb of blood, reminding us that life continues in complex cadences. The archetype of the scream bows, the conductor steps away, the theater lights dim to a warm glow. You exit carrying a hush that vibrates with newfound voltage. That hush is not absence. It is potential coiled like a seed, waiting for the next meaningful gust of wind. Walk softly. Carry thunder in your stillness. If I'm honest, the first tool you need isn't a mantra or a breathing app. It's simply learning to feel your body instead of amplifying your voice. In the technique of quiet presence, you become a somatic witness to your own tension. The next time you feel the urge to shout, pause and scan from scalp to soles. Notice the knot behind your jaw, the grind in your molars, the coil around your diaphragm. Name each sensation without judgment. Shoulders tight, chest hollow, hands trembling. Let your attention rest there for several breaths, like a lighthouse beam trained on a restless sea. As you hold that internal spotlight, you'll discover that your scream has migrated into muscle and marrow. By tracking tension rather than expending volume, you reclaim its energy, redirecting it from the throat to conscious awareness. Over time, this practice rewires the habit of roaring at distress into a steady inclination toward listening. You learn that presence can be louder than any cry because it carries the weight of honesty. Next, turn your gaze inward with the dialogue with shadow exercise. Take a blank sheet and divide it down the middle. On the left, write the words your mouth wants to scream. Every accusation, every plea, every suppressed howl. Don't filter for politeness. Let the ink pool with raw intensity. On the right, imagine your darker self replying. Ask it why it trembles at the thought of speaking, what it seeks in silence, what debt it believes it owes the world. As you alternate lines, statement, response, you'll watch the hidden dialogues that fuel self-sabotage emerge. Often the shadow voice offers secrets no therapist dared translate. The names of old betrayals, the phantom promises you made to yourself at midnight. By externalizing both sides, you transform an overwhelming internal roar into a two-person conversation you can guide. When it feels too fierce, pause and add gentle queries. What do you need right now? Slowly, the distortion between scream and silence resolves into something you can read, something you can answer. Anger and boundaries often feel a lot alike, hot, immediate, necessary. The boundary ritual turns that heat into a conscious no rather than an impulsive eruption. Choose a small, real situation, a request that makes you cringe, or a recurring demand that exhausts you. Stand or sit squarely and place one hand on your heart, the other on your solar plexus. Inhale fully, feeling the weight of your chest rising. Then exhale and speak your boundary out loud in calm, measured tones. I cannot do this, or this stops here. Notice how your body responds. The weight shifts, the jaw loosens, the spine straightens. Repeat the ritual until the phrase feels easier on your tongue than the old rumble of resentment. Each repetition wires a new pathway. Frustration no longer needs to rip through your throat to be real. Instead, you learn that your no carries gravity without volume, that setting limits is an act of self-respect, not aggression. Finally, consider the collective silence practice, where you invite trusted peers to a silent gathering, virtual or in person, for just a few minutes. No introductions, no music, no phones. Sit together in whatever posture feels natural and commit to holding silence for exactly 5 minutes. As odd as it sounds, this shared quiet can be more bonding than any group cheer. When the timer ends, each person takes turns uttering a single sentence that arises from the stillness, something true they resisted saying before. The collective hush amplifies each voice, making even a whisper feel like a declaration. This practice rewires social norms. It teaches that silence is fertile ground for authenticity and that speaking from that space carries unexpected force. Over time, participants report that they listen differently outside the ritual, giving more weight to pauses, noticing tension in colleagues, and valuing the power of what remains unsaid until it's spoken from genuine depth. If you recognized yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from my pain." Let's see who here is ready for truth. If I'm honest, the scream you carried never truly fades. It reshapes into a charged quiet where every heartbeat becomes an invitation to act. In that silent tension, decisions are born. Each breath holds the weight of unspoken truth, and your choice pulses with undeniable clarity. This transformation is not an end, but a threshold. You stand still, not because clarity requires stillness, but because readiness demands patience. Your voice may rest, but your agency speaks in every subtle shift of presence. This is the moment when energy moves from raw release into conscious purpose. This is only the beginning, for ahead lies what is most sacred, the slow unveiling of your own wisdom, the unfolding of courage whispered in the language of breath and bone. Let this hush be both reminder and promise. The next chapter is written not in echoes, but in quiet resolve. Stay fierce, stay curious, stay alive.